Hey guys, King and Charmander's here. Today I will be your judge, jury, and your analyst for this third edition of the Kanto Cup, and I will be showing you my top 5 teams for the Kanto Cup. As I always say, please consider contributing to pvpoke.com. All you gotta do is scroll down here, put your little mouse over here, and then poof, you can click on the contribute. Now, for the rankings, Kanto Cup did flip a little bit. A lot of, if you watch my Kanto Cup rankings video, you'll see that Lickitung XL has a mighty long tongue at level 50, so does Chansey. So normal typings really did kind of move up in the food chain. Machamp is still really good. A lot of things used before are still really good, but a lot of my teams will feature some of the newer Pokemon, but you'll see that a lot of older Pokemon can still be just as effective, as I use a lot of old combinations in my top 5 teams. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so for team number 5, I have Machamp lead, Hypno safe switch, and Lapras as a closer. You could dual safe switch, so you could switch into Lapras if you want to, if you feel like it, but this team is still very, very powerful. For example, if your opponent switches in, per se, like a Snorlax, well, actually, like, if they switch in, like, let's see, onto your Machamp, if they switch in a Hypno, you can switch in Lapras, or you can mirror with your own Hypno. It's really up to you. But, as you see here, I'm going to feature Hypno Safe Switch a lot just because it is the most powerful switch and it's been out for a minute. If you have one built, which many of you should have, if you don't have one yet, I recommend you do just because it's a great long-term investment. As you see here, you could also use Shadow Champ. Shadow Champ works just as well, but honestly, I like using the regular Champ just because of the extra bulk you have. Again, you can use Shadow Champ if you want to. Regular Champ does well, but if you want to use Shadow, it's up to you. But this features Hypno Safe Switch. We will be using Thunder Punch Shadow Ball. You do want that moveset just because Shadow Ball covers that ghost weakness that you have, beats the mirror match against other Hypnos, and Thunder Punch beats the Ice Water hybrids, which you will see a lot in the Kanto Cup. Well, you might see it a lot, but they're still really freaking good. That's why we're using one on our team. Machamp's in the lead for one reason, to beat the unholy hell out of Lickitung and other normal types like Snorlax or Chansey. This team has excellent coverage, great bulk, safety, and consistency overall. It's a really freaking good team. 3 really accessible mons either have been out for a minute, so you should probably have either 1 or 2 of these already built, or you have one ready. As you see, this team does incredibly well against the meta. This would be my number 1 if it were not Lickitung being the number 1 Pokemon overall in the Kanto Cup. However, if you don't have a Lickitung XL, this team does extremely well. As you see here, Machamp lead is a great idea. For the sheer purpose, it runs through normal types like no tomorrow. Hypno is still an incredibly powerful safe switch, as you see here, and Lapras as your closer adds that little extra bulk you need to take out your opponent. This team does very, very well. Your only weakness is, well, your only, triple, beats you in the one shot is really Alolan Raichu, which you might not see a lot in this cup. Alolan Raichu is a beast. However, Alolan Raichu is susceptible to ghost type attacks because it's a psychic type as well, so things like Lick will do super effective damage. So, even though if there isn't a Alolan Raichu, you can pretty much just bully your way through Alolan Raichu if you see one. But as you see, Alolan Raichu is this only complete team breaker that this team has a problem against. But as you see here, every other, there's not a lot of combinations that actually beat this team. Machamp lead can break shields, or you can pivot into Hypno and Lapras, break shields, save shields with Machamp, or realign, etc. Has a really low threat score. I wanted to really put a team in here that didn't really feature any XLs and things that have been out for a while. So this team, as you see here, has a pretty dang low threat score and will do very, very well for the Kanto Cup. Alright, do you like wiggling? Do you like 2-shield Tarmor strats? Well, guess what? I have one for you. Behold! Hypno Safe Switch again. I know, I told you, Hypnos are really good, so in a lot of these teams, I will feature Hypno. As you see here, I do have Wigglytuff, Hypno, and Amok. So Wigglytuff is really good as a 2-shield strat. With Alolan Marowak being more discouraged to not be in a roster just because of Lickitung XL, don't get me wrong, Alolan Marowak is still really good, however, it's susceptible to a lot of the lickers, like Snorlax and Lickitung XL. Along with that, Pidgeot Wall Strat, which actually completely walls Alolan Marowak, unless you have Fire Spin, but even then, it completely walls all of Alolan Marowak's charge moves, unless it's wielding Fire Blast. So, as you see here, Wigglytuff 2-Shield Strat is just incredibly strong, and it's still really, really good. If you do happen to catch a lot of opponents using Machamp, Wigglytuff and Hypno give you double coverage, so you want your opponent to have a Machamp, because you're just going to absolutely delete it from the face of the planet. Alolan Muck is an incredibly powerful closer. It's number 3 closer, in fact, and breaks a ton of shields. Alolan Muck will put the shield pressure on your opponent and allow you to sweep with Hypno and Wigglytuff, or this team will just fast move damage the holy hell out of your opponent. As you see here, great across the board, great overall coverage, bulk, safety, and consistency. This team's really good. It has double safe switch as well, so you can safe switch into either Hypno or Alolan Muck, depending on what you feel like doing. Alolan Muck is really great for this team as well, because you have Wigglytuff that resists Lick, and you also have Alolan Muck that resists Lick. So you have 2 things that resist Ghost type attacks. As you see here, this team does pretty dang good against the entire meta. If you face 2-Shield Charm strats, you know it's really good. If you've used it before, well, it can still work in the Kanto Cup, just because Wigglytuff is a beast, and like I said, with the more encouragement of using Machamp and the discouragement of Alolan Marowak, I can see Charmers being more oppressive than they were before. As you see here, this team does very, very well. Wigglytuff does have a... Okay, so this team does have one problem, which is basically Alolan Sandshrew and Alolan Sandslash. Just because Sandslash and Alolan Sandshrew do resist both Hypno's Confusions as well as Wigglytuff's Charms. However, as you see here, you can run through a lot of these Pokemon combinations with 2-Shield Wigglytuff in the lead. So you're going to do a lot of fast move damage with this team, so you should, in a lot of with minus Alolan Sandslash, you should be able to do a lot of 2-Shield Wiggly strats, just because 2-Shield Wiggly strats is very powerful. That's why we use it in Elite. But, really good team. Great generals across the board. Kind of high threat score, but it's only high because of the water tanks that basically give you a hard time. However, Wiggly 2-Shield in Elite is still very, very powerful, and this team I see and I've practiced with will do very, very well for the Kanto Cup. Alright, so my next team does feature Alolan Graveler. For those of you that were wondering if this Rock Volt Boulder Electric thingy really good in the Kanto Cup, it was really good in the last season, and it's still really good this season. So, Alolan Graveler will allow you to break shields and sweep with your back row just because it's that freaking strong. Of course, it's going to suck if you see a fighter. That's why we have Alolan Muck and Venusaur. A Muck can break both of the shields of your opponent, hopefully keep the Machamp locked into it, because Machamp does outpace Alolan Muck, and then you can sweep with Venusaur and A-Muck or A-Grav with shields, or with shield advantage, hopefully. But this team does feature Venusaur. This team does, and I like it. It's pretty solid. I did a lot of practice with it, and I really like A-Muck safe switch. Still does very, very well. Resist the Lick meta, as well as Venusaur giving you that good coverage against fighters. So, this team is very, very powerful. Again, Venusaur I like a lot just because of its ability to cover Charmers as well as fighters. So I love Venusaur in the back. As you see here, this team doesn't have a lot of bulk. This team is basically here to beat the unholy hell out of your opponent at the sacrifice of bulk, but it does have it has insane coverage, good safety, and good consistency. If you look at the meta here, Alolan Graveler can give your opponent a hard time. You can also beat Lickitung as long as you eat those you could eat body slams. A-Grav isn't that thick, but you could do a lot of strats with Alolan Graveler, where you could sacrifice Alolan Graveler or use it as like a shield pressure breaker. Again, does very, very well. And whatever's left, you can farm down with Hypno, with Alolan Muck or Venusaur. So there's a lot of sweet plays you could do with this team. A lot of shield pressure at the expense of bulk. But the reason why I like it so much is because if you look at its potential threats, the only one thing that really gives you a super hard time is Galarian Farfetch'd. Other than that, you could do very, very well against multiple combinations of Pokemon. So it's just insanely good. If you look at the threat score, 602. So it has a pretty dang low threat score. And with Galarian Farfetch'd being your only, whole core break, your only whole weakness of this team, it does very, very well. As you see here, Alolan Graveler can cover a lot of your weaknesses, or you can, like I said, you could do sacrifice the lead strats, or you could do shield break strats. It's really up to you. But I love the pressure of this team. For the lack of bulk, you have a tremendous amount of pressure that will do very well for the Kanto Cup. Alright, so you guys are probably just waiting for it, but you know what? It's mighty. It has a really long tongue. It has a big butt. It's bulky. It's thick. It's got a big booty. Lickitung, ladies and gentlemen, behold, your worst nightmare in the Kanto Cup. If you see it across from you and you don't have one on your team. But anyways, Lickitung XL does compromise our... Yeah, I think that's a lot. It does. I think that's the wrong word for it. Anyways, in any team, it's really freaking good, okay? So here we have Lickitung as the most powerful lead, Hypno as the most powerful safe switch, and then you have the big punching forearm Goro in the back to beat the unholy hell out of your opponent. This team is surprisingly good with really great coverage. Hypno safe switch is the most powerful. Well, that's what happens when you put the most powerful lead and the most powerful safe switch together. You get this, an absolute destroyer of a team. Extremely good coverage, extremely good consistency, great bulk, and safety. Because of the sheer amount of damage this team does, it's really scary. As you see here, that's a lot of X's. You have a lot of coverage against a lot of different combos. Lickitung XL, if you do happen to get a Chansey or anything in the lead, just safe switch in a Hypno, take shields. Then your opponent's really going to hate life, because once they see the fact that Machamp can farm down and just go to town against whatever's in the back row. Machamp with energy is terrifying, and it's going to cross-chop a lot of things to death. As you see here, this team there's not a lot of, this team is it's really freaking good, okay? With your only really big weakness being Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is kind of bad just because if you say switch and Hypno, you can it's kind of bad just because of Wigglytuff. So, Charmers do give you a bit of a hard time. Yes, you can body slam Wiggly and cross-chop it to death, but it's a really rough time for you. But you could also sack Lickitung if you want to Wigglytuff, and then farm it down with Hypno, and then hopefully Machamp can sweep. So there's a lot of ways around it. Basically, your biggest weakness is the normal type meta in the lead. Again, Hypno is your safe switch, Machamp is in the back. So you can do a lot of sack the lead strats, or you could just use... Or your opponent has a really hard time against Hypno, or Machamp comes in with farms down your opponent and gets energy lead. So a lot of fancy things you could do with this team, but Lickitung does compromise some of the most powerful teams in the Kanto Cup now, because it's really that good. Also, as you see here, it also has... This is probably the lowest threat score I've seen in the Kanto Cup, just because Wiggly's your worst nightmare. That's because there's a lot of things you could do around. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of strategies you can employ with this team, and it's really freaking scary. And it doesn't have a lot of holes in it. Well, it only has like one giant hole, and even then, there's ways you can play around it. But this team's insanely powerful, does really good, and as you see, again, super low rating. So if you do have a Lickitung XL, you're dying to use it. It's not a bad idea to put Hypno or something in the back, possibly a Machamp, to use for the Kanto Cup. Alright, and the final team I'll be presenting, were you really surprised that it has a Lickitung in it? I'm just being for real. Like, did you expect nothing else but to have a Lickitung? But this team is actually really, really interesting. When I put it together, I was just like, I don't like the idea that you have two things that are weak to a Machamp, but bear with me. As you see here, this team is very, very, very interesting, because it's excellent across the board. It has great bulk, great safety. It's phenomenal across the board. You have Lickitung as your lead, you have Lapras as your safe, and Alolan Ninetales as the closer with Charm. A9 with Charm is incredibly powerful with 2 shields. Especially since Alolan Marowak is kind of like been not really ousted out of the meta, but it's kind of like this redheaded stepchild. A9 with 2 shields is a beast. So again, very, very strong, very, very powerful. Lickitung lead, Lapras, safe switch, and Ninetales as your closer. Now, you're probably wondering why Lapras as your safe switch. Well, the thing is, if you do get a Machamp lead, you could sack your Lickitung, break both of your shields, and then just run everything over with Ninetales and Lapras in the back. So there's that. You could do that, or you could send in Lapras, hopefully you could expend one shield, break Machamp's both shields, then come in with Alola Ninetales, farm down. There's a lot of things you could do, okay? This team's bulky enough to make up for a lot of deficiencies, and it's just really strong with a 2-shield Charm Strat and the most powerful lead and Pokemon overall in the game in Lickitung. Lapras is also the number 2 safe switch, so it's only below Hypno, so you can see why this team is just so freaking strong. As you see here, again, Machamp is probably going to give you a hard time, but this team just has a dramatic amount of coverage against the meta. There's not a lot of things that core break this entire team, or will give you a really hard time with 3 really tanky Pokemon, and with a 2-shield Alolan Ninetales. You can use Powder Snow, it's really up to you, but the rating doesn't change. For example, if I do change it into a Powder Snow A9, results still stand as the same. You'll still get the same. See? Still the same. I like the Charm idea just because with Charm you can 2-shield Charm your way through to victory in the back, so it's really just up to you. But either moveset works. As you see here, your only potential threat is Venusaur, and even then, Lickitung is so thick it can tank a Frenzy Plant, and you can Body Slam Venusaur to death, and then send in Lapras. You could sack Lickitung, send in Lapras, farm it down, A9 2-shield strat, and then just bam. Alolan Sandslash can also give you a little bit of a hard time, just because of the fact that it does kind of like hardball. It doesn't really it does resist both of Lickitung's charge moves, so as in like Power Whip and Body Slam. Lapras also has a hard time against it, just because both versions of A-Slash will double resist Ice type attacks, and Alolan Ninetales is also really kind of like that. Lapras can beat it. Lapras can beat Alolan Sandslash by the sheer virtue it also double resists Powder Snow, so there's a lot of things. If you have to take out Alolan Sandslash, hopefully with Lapras if you can. So do your best against it. Otherwise, Alolan Sandslash isn't super bulky, so you could possibly take it out with Lickitung or Alolan Ninetales with enough chip damage. Chansey can also give this team a very hard time. You can throw in Lapras and A9 at it and then just chunk it down. But Chansey is also very, very bulky, so just keep in mind you're going to spend a lot of resources. I already covered Machamp for here, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But again, if you get a Machamp, switch in a Lapras, try to break both of its shields, and then send in A9 to charm down with shield advantage. Team's really, really powerful, really good. 589 threat score, so even though it doesn't have a high threat score, overall, I think this is, like, in my opinion, probably one of the best teams I could come up with. Just because of the fact that it does have a lot of bulk. It's very, very safe against a ton of combinations. And freaking Charm 2 Shield. No, literally. Charm 2 Shield strat. Very, very strong. Very, very good. So I think this is one of the best teams I could come up with for the Kanto Cup in Season 7. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, Kanto Cup hasn't really changed a lot just because, well, it has technically kind of changed a lot because of Lickitung XL, etc. So it kind of flipped a lot of things around. But that's not to say that the old teams you've been using will work really, really good. For example, I totally plan on using my level 51 Alolan Sandshrew to literally boost and claw my way to victory. I will claw Lickitung XL's eyes out with my little cute little armadillo with claws, and it's really, really big with this triangular rare candy thingy, whatever you want to call it. So again, teams that you used before should still work fairly well. Just be aware that the meta did shift a bit, not quite a bit, just because there's a lot of things that could work for the Kanto Cup, but did kind of flip over a little bit to a little probably normal normal Pokemon being a lot safer. And even then, Machamp still isn't very safe just because of Hypno's presence. Psychic-type Pokemon and Charmers do melt Machamps, and you can still have that little Pidgeot flying around to gust it to death. So Machamp still has a lot of threats, not to say it's not can be used and is still really good for the Kanto Cup. Teams, if you don't have these teams, that's perfectly fine. Teams you used before should still work very well. But just make sure you do a little bit of testing that, or take one of these teams. I try to give you a whole bunch of different looks so you could be really flexible with what Pokemon you could pick. However, you don't have to use these teams. Like I mentioned, these are my top teams I could come up with, but I tried to be really flexible to give you a whole different bunch of looks so you could have some fun in the Kanto Cup. Remember, it's unranked, so do not worry about winning or losing unless you care about unless like invisible elo, whatever, it's up your unless it's really up to you. But hopefully you reached your goals this season. I wish you the best of luck and hope you have a lot of fun. For next season, get ready for next season, for Season 8. Hopefully this does help you get a little practice in, or you can skip the Kanto Cup altogether. It's really up to you. Either way, if you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. For the subscription, all you have to do is float your mouse to the bottom right, and all you have to do is click that little sub button right there. I made it really easy for you to sub. Hover your mouse above it and just click subscribe, and poof, you subscribed. It's free, really helps me out, and I really do appreciate it. Helps support the channel, and I really do appreciate the support. Again, just have fun, you guys. If you didn't reach your goals now, there's always going to be next season. Unless Niantic just breaks Go Battle League and it's out for a month. Anyways, we don't need those dark times. Let's just hope it gets better. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.